Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I was scrolling through my tablet right here and I thought, you know what, let me see what I could read. And this looked pretty interesting. It's X-Men Days of Future Past Doomsday. So it's not the classic Days of Future Past that we all know about. This is a more modern one. You see everybody on the cover right there. You got Storm, you got Kitty Pryde, Wolverine. The artwork, at least on this cover, looks pretty good than all the Sentinels around. So let's just go to the inner page. Now this is the cover of the classic. It says here collected edition. Nice. Classic cover. I love it. This cover always kind of reminds me of like Terminator. So this one here, again, same title, but they added Doomsday. Similar play on that cover. You see the light there from the helicopters. This artwork, I'm not as impressed by this as I was with the cover. So okay, here we go. Now here it says writer Mark Guggenheim, penciler Manuel Garcia, inker Cam Smith, colorist Yen Nitro, letterer VC's Clayton Cowles. Okay, now on this cover, definitely looks like the poster of the old school Days of Future Past story. You have all the X-Men there that are either wanted or dead. From none of them have the X there, so I guess they're all wanted. Once they have an X crossed around them, it would mean they're dead. First panel, we see a bunch of Sentinels trying to get all the mutants. And I like the narration here. It says, "My name is Catherine Pryde, Rasputin." So this implying in the future, Kitty Pryde is now married to Colossus, who his name is Rasputin. And then it says, "I'm a mutant, a person born with a genetic difference that sets us apart from the rest of humanity. Today, it's a crime to be a mutant, to simply live." So it's a very powerful statement right there. Like they're shunned basically just for being born because they have these special powers, and some people are threatened by them. Then it introduces other characters here: Peter Rasputin, Scott Summers, Warren Worthington, and Kitty Pryde. So we're kind of seeing this story through her eyes, or because she's the narrator here, so it's through her point of view. As Kitty Pryde is explaining to us how in this future the X-Men are no longer superheroes. They have now are just fighting for survival. And oh, you see the Sentinel just creep up behind Angel and just tear his wings off. It tore him in half, not just the wings, because I see his arm flying way over to the left right here. It's real brutal start, and it gives you this feel of how like helpless this future is for mutants. Immediately after, Cyclops also gets taken down by the Sentinel. But when this happens, we see these two little kids. One, it says here his name is Charles Rasputin, superhero named Sprite. And the other one is Jean Rasputin, superhero named Goliath. She turns into organic steel like her father, Colossus. And the boy, his power is intangibility control. So similar to Kitty Pryde's powers. And even his nickname is Sprite, which was Kitty Pryde's nickname for like a hot second, right? And then she went back to Kitty Pryde, back when she was still trying to find a name in her early days. So it's pretty cool. It shows here they now have a family. It shows character growth. Their kids are still young, but they're living in this brutal world where like you gotta learn to use your powers and you gotta learn quick because it's for survival. It's like they're animals in the jungle where you just gotta learn how to survive at a real early age. All right, so next page. Damn, Sentinel just took them out real quick. Like I thought they were gonna last and be like a big part of this story, but man, these opening few pages, it clearly sets the tone that nobody's gonna survive, and it's making everything feel like helpless, right? Like they're fighting an uphill battle, and you see the shock here in Colossus and Kitty Pryde. Their children have just been killed right in front of them. They've been burned to a crisp, and I really like the way they just show the eyes here, but it shows so much emotion from them, like like, you know, like their heart's been ripped out of them basically. And oh man, like the artwork here is really good, and the story so far is very depressing, but very like it immediately grabs you. Like I want to know what the hell, how did we get to this point? Now Kitty Pryde, as the narrator, says, so how did we get to this point? Kind of what I was just asking. And it says here, the Supreme Court proved it was no friend of mutant kind when they overturned the 22nd Amendment right, and effectively they made William Stryker president. Now, William Stryker is one of the freaking biggest racists in the X universe. He really hates mutants, and if you've ever seen the movie X-Men Part 1 and 2, you get a good idea of who he is. And that actor, I don't know the actor's name, but he did a great job there. So anyways, once he became president, basically everything went to shit. One day there was this big superhero fight right here, and there's this villain named Nitro. So this is kind of like a take on the story from Civil War. So this villain named Nitro, while they're fighting, he's like a human ticking time bomb. He blows up, right? So he blows up the spot, kind of like a kamikaze type of thing. Takes everybody out with him, buildings and stuff like that. Obviously, that's a problem. And that's kind of what happened with the same character in the Civil War storyline, where they started not wanting superhero people around. So the same thing happens here. And here you got Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, and all these other politicians sitting around talking about this situation. Now they're talking about marital law means the suspension of civil rights. So they want to pass this law. Then it says, we need to be taking control of America. And it's certainly easier once democracy is on a timeout. Now, I thought that kind of funny because I think it's probably, I mean, I guess it depends on what it is it's trying to say here, to take everybody's rights. But I feel like you need Republicans because they're the ones that are really strict about laws, and Democrats are a little bit more like loose with it, if you will. They let people get away with a lot more, and they want to, you know, really put the hammer down on this situation. And what happened here was careless on superheroes' parts, but it wasn't just mutants, you know what I mean? But they're just blaming only the mutants. That's where it gets funky, because other superheroes were involved as well, like Captain America, Fantastic Four, stuff like that. And those teams work with the government. Next page, let's talk a little bit about this conversation Captain America is having on TV. It's kind of like an interview here, like think CNN. He says, like any other form of prejudice, anti-mutant prejudice has no reasonable justifications. He is not wrong there. Now let's see what this interviewer says, this journalist, if you will. He says, this isn't about prejudice, Captain Rogers. This is concern, justifiable, logical concern. Alrighty then. Captain America says, mutants are no more good or evil than humans. The journalist here says, but that doesn't change the fact that mutants are dangerous. They walk around with superpowers at a young age. That is like handing a bunch of 10-year-olds loaded guns. You can see why we would be scared of that. Man, this guy makes a lot of sense here. This little conversation they have is very well written, in my opinion. And I feel like he handed Captain America his ass right here. Like, everything he said made sense. And Captain America is more talking with his feelings and emotions, and this guy is using logic. So that whole little debacle that happened in the interview, where this guy came out looking real good and Captain America not so much, like he didn't make a strong argument. And this guy was, you know, he's a politician, so he's better at this stuff. Captain America's a hero. He's not there giving speeches. That's not his bag. You know what I mean? So this guy did such a convincing job that everybody watching TV, all the humans, like, they turned on mutants right away. He basically was like a fear monger. Everybody's now scared of the mutants. And then especially the situation that happened, there was an explosion in the middle of the city. All kinds of people died during this superhero fight. So while all this is going down, that was basically the beginning of downward spiral, right? And started making more sentinels so that humans can start feeling safe from these superpowered people. Mainly the mutants is who they're targeting. And the thing is, they have so many sentinels now. They're upgrading them more and more. And as they upgrade them, they start artificial intelligence making their own opinions. And they start turning on humans. And this is, we kind of know this already, but here it fleshes it out. Like, this is what led to the fucked up future we have, because now machines took over. Now they're against humans, they're against mutants, and now we're all fucked because they could keep making more and more robots. Introduced to Magneto for the first time in the storyline, and here we see him talking to Charles, and he tells him, "I'm sorry, Charles, I truly am." And you see he's controlling a bunch of nuclear missiles. So he's obviously starting a war with the humans, and Magneto's always like itching to start a race war between mutants and humans. Here, Charles tells the X-Men, go after him. So we have other X-Men go after him, and Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Kitty Pryde. Here she's wearing her old Sprite costume that she wore for like one issue only back in the days. So that's kind of odd that she has this costume on. I don't get it. But anyway, she has this suit on. They go to stop Magneto from launching this missile, and it's a bunch of them. So when Jean Grey, I mean, she's super powerful as the Phoenix, but I don't know, I guess they depowered her for the sake of the story. Because here, just to stop these missiles, it was too much for her. It cost her her life. So Kitty Pryde grabs Cyclops, and Kitty Pryde, when she touches someone, they could turn kind of like translucent or invisible, like her. So the explosion goes right through her and through Cyclops because she's holding on to him. So they survive this, but Jean Grey does not. She just dies in this explosion. So man, that's one hell of an ending to the first issue. This was like real crazy as far as a first issue. It packed a huge punch. Next issue starts off with we have a funeral for Jean Grey, and here we have Magneto. He shows up and he's talking to the X-Men, and he's the reason Jean Grey is dead. So they're not happy with him there. But Professor Xavier, cooler heads prevail. They talk it out, and Magneto explains to Professor X how he's sorry about everything. That was his intent was to kill humans, not other mutants. And we all know this is very true of Magneto because he really fights for his people a lot. He just goes about it a different way than Professor X. He does it more through diplomacy, through politics, through the law. And Magneto, not so much. Is more like of a revolutionary, if you will. So he's talking to them how it was an accident and he will never attack nuclear weapons plants or the military. He says that now, but then he tells Professor X, you do know there's a war coming, and it's happening. It's already happening. It's not even coming. We're there. And Professor X says we should team up. The villains and the good guys, it's not about good or bad anymore. It's about all mutants should be on the same side because you're right, there is a war coming. We fast forward here to year 19, it says. We see a huge sentinel, like way bigger than the normal ones we had back in the days because it's 19 years in the future. And it's right next to the Xavier school. So they're kind of like just keeping an eye on the school, supposedly making sure mutants are just there to learn. They're not like training for anything. They're not soldiers. But really they're observing them for their weaknesses, what mutant has what power and so on. Because they're planning an attack one day, and now it's been 19 years, and that day has come. They totally ambush all mutants in the school. It just, it got real ugly. It was basically like a big terrorist attack. The story is doing a really good job of showing how ugly war is. You see a lot of the mutants dying here, and you really kind of sympathize with them. You see a lot of dead bodies here, and since this is kind of like an Elseworld story, they die for reals, right? Because we are in the future. So that's kind of good to see that there is casualties, there is things that are at risk. And it did a good job building up of how these things slowly happen. This happened over the course of 20 years. It didn't happen overnight, but we saw it slowly going in that direction. Up, and one of the X-Men pulls a gun out on him, and he explains to, she says here, so how about you give me one good reason, even halfway decent reason for me not to kill you. Bishop says, I'll give you two. One, you couldn't hurt me even if you tried. And the other, I'm here to save Rachel Summers. So the girl here, she says, you have my attention. Bishop explains, this is him saying, my name is Bishop. I'm from another future. An alternative timeline. In 6 years, the other world powers are going to launch an all-out nuclear strike. Starting World War III, Rachel Summers is the key to stopping everything. I know it sounds ridiculous. She replies, wait, I'm an X-Men, like, that's not even close to sounding ridiculous. Once we get to the last issue, got to this page where I was like, yes, like, it reenacts the scene where Wolverine attacks the Sentinel and the Sentinel fries him. This is the same as in the original Days of Future Past. So that tells me the stories kind of kept the same, but they just fleshed it out more. So that's real cool. I think you could replace the original 2-issue story arc with this 4-issue one that's a little more modern, and it kind of gets a little more into details of how we got to that point. Magneto at this time was in a wheelchair. So Kitty Pryde went back in time and she saved the president from getting killed by a mutant, and she got shot instead. So she goes back to the future, thinking it has changed the future now. She sees the future still the same, and she's kind of like, it didn't change anything. So a mutant killing the president isn't what started all this. Magneto shows up again, but this time he is not in a wheelchair, and he says, I guess now we still have much work to do. We have to change more things in the past. But when it says that, he is not in a wheelchair, he is standing upright, and we flick to the next page, and we got a whole bunch of other X-Men that did not exist in the original story arc. A lot of characters that were created after and stuff like that. So that was the last page, and the ending was real cool because it left it open to interpretation, and it kind of left it like there is hope. We can change the future. This was really good. I like that they kept it somewhat the same, but they modernized it enough where I think it improved upon it, but at the same time it was faithful enough where it's not like, it ruined the story. So yeah, I think this was really good. I enjoyed it, and I think you could kind of replace the original one and read this one instead if you just wanna kind of read only the essential X-Men stories and you don't want to read every single storyline and continuity. But I kind of like to read both and just kind of compare and see what changes they have made. That's always kind of fun to do as well. All right, let me know if you guys have read this story, Days of Future Past, Doomsday, and let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section down below. Other than that, I will just check you guys out next time.